Hey everyone, a good Wednesday evening to you. It's 21 News Chief Meteorologist Eric Wilhelm. This, of course, is Weather for Weather Geeks, my daily deep dive into the past, present, and future weather here across the Mahoning and Shenango Valleys. Another pretty quiet day today. We had our 10th consecutive rain-free day across the area today. Certainly not a record or anything like that. Our record is 25 in a row. We won't come close to that, but I think we'll do 2 straight weeks with no rain before we finally see some raindrops. Maybe by Sunday night and into parts of early next week. I want to start out this evening talking about fall foliage. Our high-res satellite of the picture of the region from about a month ago shows, of course, the very green landscape in the heart of summer. But fast forwarding to today, not only a little haze in the sky with some thin wildfire smoke and some thin cirrus clouds, but if you pay close attention here, some patches of color really starting to show up, no doubt, in your travels around town. You've seen some trees starting to show some color. One patch in particular, east of Mosquito Lake, is showing up here. And the landscape is noticeably browner out in northwest Ohio up into Canada as well. Part of that is foliage. Part of that is the browning of the ground, thanks to the relatively dry weather much of the region has had over the last few weeks. All right, typically, as you know, if you've been a long-time Valley resident, our foliage around here peaks somewhere mid to late October. As a rough average, October 15th to 27th, kind of that 12 to 14-day window is about when our colors usually peak. It'll be an earlier peak, as always, in the higher terrain. Out to our east, if you've gone across Pennsylvania, either on 80 or the PA Turnpike, of course, you go through some mountainous terrain. Up in those higher elevations, the colors tend to peak a little bit sooner. But around here, I usually say about 15th through the 27th for the peak of the foliage, and it's all about the chlorophyll. And that's what gives the leaves their green color. As we get into the fall season, the days become shorter, less sunlight hitting those trees and leaves. The chlorophyll is depleted, and other pigments are allowed to show up. And of course, that means colors. That means the reds and the yellows and the golds and all the pretty colors that we like to see on the trees. The recipe, generally speaking, for the best colors: sunny days, cool nights, in the lead up to peak foliage season and during peak foliage season as well. Now, we've had a lot of those kinds of days lately. Cold nights and sunny days. That being said, it's been pretty dry of late. You want it to be on the drier side for a great foliage season. You don't want it to be too dry, though. It's kind of a tough needle to thread. And at this point, I would say that we're not excessively dry enough that I'm concerned about a dull season. I actually think it'll end up being a pretty nice foliage season this time around. All right, our record high for today's date was set just 3 years ago, back in 2017. On the 23rd, it was 89 degrees. Records at this time of the year in late September tend to be in the upper 80s and some days in the lower 90s. Today's a day in which our record is no higher than the upper 80s. All right, another record to talk about this time on the other end of the spectrum. You may have seen this somewhere on the internet or in the news today. The WMO, World Meteorological Organization, recognized, after going through some data archives, that this is a legitimate temperature set back on December 22nd, 1991 in Greenland. Fahrenheit, 93.3 below zero. That makes it the coldest recorded temperature anywhere in the Northern Hemisphere. The coldest worldwide temperature is down in Antarctica back in July of 1983. Of course, that's winter down in the Southern Hemisphere. I believe the number is 128 below zero as the coldest temperature recorded on Earth. But in the Northern Hemisphere, this is the new record. So back in 1991, minus 93.3, a little brisk. All right, this evening we have an increase in high clouds around. The sky became a little hazy late today. We had some thin, high-level wildfire smoke. It's not as much of a story as it was at this time last week, but still a little bit making for kind of a hazy sky this evening. And here's a live look at 7:06 p.m. facing west Youngstown. Not going to be a great-looking sunset on the camera, unfortunately, this evening, thanks to the thickening clouds and haze that we have out there. All right, moisture is going to stay off to our south and somewhat to our north over the next few days. Maybe somewhat cloudy to start on Thursday, but the afternoon should be pretty bright. No problems through Friday. No problems through Saturday. Easy peasy. This is snooze and cruise type of a forecast for those of us in the weather prediction business. This is a very quiet period here in 2020. It's going to stay that way probably through at least the first half of the weekend, and we've even reduced our chances of a shower on Sunday down to 20%. Models are trending drier now for Sunday. Shower possibilities will be a little bit higher, I think, as we head into next week as the pattern really starts to change. Notice our high temperature forecast here by the weekend, Friday and the weekend, upper 70s to around 80. That may be the last 80-degree temperature we see this year, because we've got a big change coming next week as we finish out September and start October. A big ridge will poke up along the west coast. Downstream of that, a big trough will dig in to the upper Midwest, the Great Lakes. If this were January, this would be a very interesting pattern for cold and snow. It's not January, though, so what it means is a little bit of a fast forward to kind of the type of weather we expect around Halloween, late October. That means highs mostly in the mid-50s instead of the mid-60s. Will this come with any sort of interesting precipitation? Way too early to talk much in detail about that. That being said, the models are forecasting at 5,000 feet above our heads by next Wednesday, the final hours of September. Some of the modeling showing some temperatures up at the 5,000 foot level, getting down into the 20s. If we have some moisture being picked up by the lakes during this cold snap, during the second half of next week, into next weekend, I don't want to rule out at this point that maybe something of the frozen variety tries to fall out of those clouds. Maybe some graupel, maybe a few snowflakes. Again, not something I'm going to forecast or guarantee this far in advance, but it's interesting to look at as we look at the data in the longer range. So it's almost a cinch, a lock, if you will, that the end of September and the first week of October will be colder than average. Now, you may remember that the initial October outlook put out by the Climate Prediction Center about a week ago suggested that October would end up coming out in the wash as warmer than average. The odds favor that anyway. I still wouldn't discount that. Just because the first handful of days of October may be pretty darn chilly does not mean the entire month will be like that. September, for example, is now cooler than average, or very near average, but the month started out very, very warm. A first week of the month does not mean that the entire month will shake out that way, and I don't have a whole lot of confidence in how the pattern will evolve just yet once we get past that chilly first week of October. That's it for tonight. Thanks for watching Weather for Weather Geeks. I'll see you back here on Thursday.